The gavel has fallen. If you are hearing this right now, it is not by chance, and it is not by accident. The Spirit of the living God has ordered your steps to this exact moment, because a verdict has been issued in the courts of heaven concerning your life, your finances, and your future. The judge of all the earth has reviewed the evidence, weighed the accusations, and rendered a final decision. And the decision stands, case closed, in your favor. Anointed one, you are not watching this because you were curious. You were summoned. This is a divine appointment set before you were born. A Kairos moment where heaven interrupts the ordinary timeline and declares that the season has shifted. There is a time to sow and a time to reap. There is a time to weep and a time to laugh. And the Spirit is declaring that your time of recompense has begun. You have stood in what felt like a spiritual courtroom for years. You endured delay, accusation, resistance, and unseen warfare. But the Word says that after you have suffered a while, He will establish you, strengthen you, and settle you. This is that settling. This is that ordained hour where what was contested is now confirmed, where what was withheld is now released. You are standing at the edge of a supernatural shift. What has been locked is unlocking. What has been tied up in the Spirit is being loosed. Heaven is not negotiating your destiny anymore. It is enforcing it. The atmosphere around you is changing because the verdict has already gone forth, and what God has spoken cannot be overturned. This is not hype. This is holy timing. The same God who prepares a table in the presence of enemies has now authorized a settlement in your name. You are not stepping into luck. You are stepping into fulfillment. The long night has reached its appointed end, and the morning has been commanded to break over your life. And understand this, chosen one, God's reminders do not always come through explanations or loud declarations. Sometimes what sustains your faith is something quiet, simple, and steady to return to when your strength feels thin. If you need that anchor, it has been gently placed where you can find it before we step into part 1. For a long time now, you have lived with the sensation that your life has been unfolding inside a spiritual courtroom. You have walked through days where every forward step felt questioned. You have carried seasons where every intention was met with resistance. You have endured nights where it seemed as though heaven was silent while accusations echoed around you. And deep inside, you wondered if anyone saw the weight you were carrying, the pressure you were bearing, or the private tears you kept releasing into your pillow when no one else was awake to witness them. Anointed one, I know what that feels like, because I have lived that kind of season myself. There were days I showed up for life while quietly feeling like I was standing trial for things I never did. There were moments I questioned if maybe I had misread God's promises because everything around me looked like a contradiction. There were times I told God, I'm tired of defending myself against attacks I didn't start and fires I didn't light. I didn't know it then, but heaven was allowing me to experience the pressure of a process that was setting me up for a divine ruling in my favor. And that same ruling is being handed down over your life right now. Heaven is declaring that the court is adjourned. The accusations have been dismissed. The spiritual delays that have stalked you are losing their authority. God is not only granting you a victory, He is granting you a settlement. That means heaven is not simply saying, you win. Heaven is saying, you are owed. And the settlement attached to your name is not small. It carries restitution for what you lost and recompense for what you suffered. It includes repayment for what was stolen, recovery for what was delayed, and restoration for what was drained out of your spirit, your finances, your confidence, and your hope. You may not have realized this, but every tear you cried in secret was documented. Every night you pushed through anxiety while pretending to be strong for others was logged. Every betrayal that shook your sense of worth was accounted for. Every time you held on to faith while your hands were trembling, heaven recorded the cost. You have not endured in vain. You have not survived these battles for nothing. The enemy thought he was merely wounding you, but he was running up a bill that heaven is now calling due. Anointed one, I want you to understand something that came to me only after walking through my own years of spiritual warfare. I used to think that when the enemy stole something from me, time, opportunity, peace, connections, he stole only the moment itself. But the Spirit revealed something deeper. The enemy does not just steal the seed. He steals the harvest that seed was supposed to produce. And when heaven calculates a settlement, heaven does not pay you for the seed alone. Heaven pays you for the entire forest that was meant to grow from it. That is why the door opening in front of you feels bigger than what you expected. That is why the blessing you are sensing feels almost too large for your hands. You thought you were being restored to where you were before the attack, but God is restoring you to where you would have been if the attack never happened. That is compound spiritual interest. That is heaven saying, I saw everything, I counted everything, and I am repaying everything. Anointed one, I once walked through a season where it seemed like every good thing slipped through my fingers. Opportunities dried up, relationships shifted unexpectedly, finances tightened in ways that didn't make sense, and I remember telling God, if I could just get back to where I was, that would be enough. But God interrupted me in prayer and said, I am not a God who rewinds. I am a God who redeems. What I thought was loss was actually preparation. What I believed was a setback was positioning. And the moment God released my own settlement, the restoration came bigger, faster, and deeper than anything I could have orchestrated. Chosen one, your settlement is going to touch multiple areas of your life. For some, it will be financial, unexpected releases, approvals coming through, opportunities reappearing, back pay surfacing, inheritances unlocked, or favor that opens streams of provision you never imagined. For others, it will be relational, peace settling over your home like a warm blanket, tension dissolving, distance closing, prodigal hearts returning, love being mended in ways that feel holy rather than human. And for many, it will be physical, health conditions shifting, symptoms breaking, clarity returning, strength rising in places where weakness once lived. But there is another dimension to this settlement. Public vindication. There are individuals who watched you struggle, who assumed your delay was your defeat. There were people who whispered about you, doubted you, or counted you out. They did not know heaven was preparing a table. And when God prepares a table, He does not hide it. He sets it in plain sight. Not to feed your ego, but to validate His word. Your settlement will testify on your behalf in places where your voice was not heard. Anointed one, you have come too far to step back now. The warfare intensified not because you were losing, but because the enemy saw the release before you did. I know this personally. Every major breakthrough in my life was preceded by a strange heaviness, unusual pressure, or out-of-nowhere resistance. That was the enemy's last attempt to make me turn around. Do not turn around now. The check has already been issued in heaven. Chosen one. Imagine for a moment a hand extending from the throne room. In that hand is a document with your name written in heaven's ink. The amount is beyond your need. The memo line reads, paid in full for pain and suffering, and the signature bears the mark of the one who intercedes for you. You do not receive this because you are flawless. You receive it because your advocate has won the case. This is where we pause, and in the next part, we step together into how to spiritually endorse this settlement so it manifests in your life with clarity, faith, and authority. Before heaven releases anything into the natural realm, it first establishes it in the spirit. That means your settlement is already written, already stamped, already authorized. But for it to manifest in your hands, your posture must shift from surviving the trial to receiving the verdict. This is where many believers get stuck. They know God is faithful, but they continue to live as though the case is still being argued. Today, heaven removes you from the witness stand and seats you at the table of inheritance. Anointed one, hear me clearly. A settlement check must be endorsed. Even in the natural world, if someone sends you a check worth $1 million, that check is powerless until you sign it. You can stare at it, you can frame it, you can celebrate it. But until your signature touches it, nothing in your life changes. And spiritually, it is the same. God has already issued the settlement, but your agreement, your posture, your declaration, that is your signature. I learned this the hard way. I spent a whole season praying for God to do what He had already promised. I asked Him to open doors He had already unlocked. I cried for help in battles He had already won. But my heart was still standing in the courtroom, pleading, crying, begging for relief. One day during prayer, the Spirit whispered to me, "Stop asking for what I have already ruled in your favor. Endorse the verdict." That changed everything. Chosen one, the enemy's greatest strategy is not always to stop your blessing. Sometimes he knows he cannot stop what God has released, so he tries to keep you from receiving it. He whispers guilt into your spirit. He plants thoughts that say, maybe I don't deserve this, or maybe it's too late for me, or maybe God will do it for others, but not for me. Those thoughts are not humility. They are spiritual theft. If the enemy cannot steal the settlement, he will try to steal your confidence to claim it. But heaven is calling you into agreement. This is why your mindset matters right now. You cannot walk into a season of settlement with the language of a victim. You cannot carry the posture of someone still waiting to be defended when God has already defended you. Shift your posture, anointed one. Stand like someone whose name has been cleared. Speak like someone whose case has been won. Move like someone whose blessing has already been assigned. Now let's talk about what this settlement might look like in your life, not hypothetically, prophetically. For some of you, this settlement will manifest financially. I have seen this in my own journey. There was a moment when money that had been tied up for months suddenly released within days. I didn't expect it. I didn't chase it. I didn't manipulate anything to make it happen. Heaven simply opened a window. And when heaven opens a window, no man can shut it. Some of you will experience approvals you thought were denied, unexpected refunds, debts forgiven or recalibrated, opportunities resurfacing out of nowhere. Not because of luck, because the settlement reached your account. For others, your settlement will be relational. God is going to settle your home. There will be peace where there was tension, unity where there was division, understanding where there was conflict. You may not see how yet, but heaven specializes in invisible alignments. Hearts are turning even now. Words are softening. Walls are cracking. Rebellion is losing its grip. And for some, the settlement will manifest not through returning relationships, but through restored identity, knowing your worth again after years of feeling unseen. And for many, your settlement will be physical. I have seen God heal in ways that made no sense to doctors. Symptoms disappearing, conditions shifting, strength rising in places where weakness had lived for years. Heaven is not simply giving you relief, it is giving you restoration. Some of you will wake up with clarity in your body, peace in your mind, and energy you haven't felt in years. That is settlement. But chosen one, there is one more dimension heaven wants you to understand: public vindication. This one is tender because it deals with the places where you were misjudged, misunderstood, or mishandled. There are people who watched you walk through hardship and assumed God had forgotten you. They believed your silence meant defeat. They labeled your delay as failure. But heaven is preparing a table before them, not to shame them, but to reveal himself through you. Your settlement will speak louder than explanations. You will not have to defend yourself. You will not have to prove anything. God will validate his promise with evidence. I have lived this. There were seasons when people wondered if I would rise again. They whispered doubts, counted me out, or assumed my story was finished. But when God restored me, he restored me publicly, and I knew in that moment, vindication belongs to the Lord. Anointed one, you are closer to this shift than you realize. The warfare intensified because the payout is near. The confusion increased because clarity is about to break. The pressure mounted because promotion is already in motion. Heaven is not negotiating your future. Heaven is finalizing it. Now visualize this with me again. A hand from heaven extended toward you. A settlement document resting in the palm. Your name written clearly. The amount exceeding your expectations. The memo line reading, paid in full for pain and suffering. And the signature sealed by the one who intercedes on your behalf at the right hand of the Father. Chosen one, do not let guilt rob you. Do not let fear silence you. Do not let unworthiness steal what God has authorized. You are not receiving this because you were flawless. You are receiving this because your advocate, your defender, your redeemer has won the case. In the next segment, we step into the spiritual action required, how to endorse this settlement with your faith so that heaven's ruling becomes earth's reality. Before a divine settlement becomes visible in the natural realm, something must shift inside you, not in your circumstances, not in the people around you, inside you. Heaven can deliver the check, but only you can pick it up, sign it, and walk away with it. This is spiritual mechanics, and it is the place where many stop short of manifestation, but not you, not in this season. Anointed one, you are stepping into alignment right now, and alignment is not about perfection. It is about permission, giving God permission to move you out of the courtroom and into the counting room. It is about allowing your spirit to release the posture of pleading and rise into the posture of receiving. There is an old identity that cannot cross into your new season, the identity that only survived, only fought, only defended itself. That version of you has served its purpose, but the version of you that steps into settlement must walk with a different rhythm. Let me share something personal, something I rarely talk about. There was a season in my life where every prayer I prayed felt like it hit the ceiling and fell back into my hands. I begged for breakthroughs, I pleaded for clarity, I cried for answers, but nothing shifted. I thought maybe God wanted more words, more fasting, more sacrifice, but the Spirit whispered something that startled me. I cannot give you what you keep begging for. You are praying like someone still on trial. Pray like someone who has already been cleared. Chosen one, those words shook me. I did not realize how tied my identity was to surviving spiritual warfare. I didn't know how to live without bracing for impact, and heaven showed me something. Many believers are so used to the battle that they no longer recognize when the war has ended. They stay in defense mode long after the attack has stopped. They fight shadows that no longer exist. They plead for outcomes that heaven has already stamped approved. You have reached that turning point. The settlement season requires a new sound from you. You cannot keep repeating the language of loss while heaven is trying to clothe you in the garments of gain. You cannot speak like someone waiting for permission when God has already released provision. Your words, your posture, your inner narrative, they must shift into agreement with divine verdict. Let's talk about this endorsement deeper. When heaven releases a settlement check, it comes with spiritual clauses: restoration, recompense, elevation, vindication. But each of these clauses activates when you spiritually endorse the check. Endorsement sounds like faith, but it feels like surrender. It is you saying, I release every identity tied to struggle. I release every story tied to defeat. I release every belief that says I am unworthy of abundance. It is also you saying, I step into what God has already ruled. I claim what heaven has already awarded. I agree with the settlement written in my name, and this is where I must tell you the truth, chosen one. The enemy does not fear your prayer. He fears your agreement. Because prayer can be emotional, but agreement is spiritual authority. Prayer can come from desperation, but agreement comes from revelation. When you agree with God, you silence the accusations of the enemy. When you agree with God, you shut down spiritual interference. When you agree with God, you step into the inheritance that has always been yours. Anointed one, here is something I had to learn through experience. Agreement requires letting go. Not just letting go of pain, but letting go of patterns. Letting go of the version of yourself that learned to live in survival mode. Letting go of the mindset that said breakthroughs are rare or blessings are fragile. Letting go of the belief that you must earn what God has already gifted. Letting go of the habit of anticipating disappointment. I remember a moment when I had been praying for provision. I told God, if you would just help me survive this season, I would be grateful. And heaven responded with something almost humorous. Survival is beneath your inheritance. It reminded me of Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, when the word speaks of an appointed time that cannot be rushed and cannot be denied. God wasn't preparing me to survive. God was preparing me to receive. Heaven is preparing you the same way. The settlement coming your way is not survival level. It is overflow level. It is not barely enough. It is more than enough. The reason the door feels big is because it contains the harvest of years you lost. The reason the blessing feels weighty is because it carries compensation for every tear, every betrayal, every delay, every moment of unseen endurance. When you endorse what heaven has written, the spiritual realm begins to respond. Suddenly, doors that were welded shut begin to unlock. Conversations that were stagnant begin to move. Hearts that were hardened begin to soften. Finances that were stuck begin to flow. And opportunities that disappeared begin to return. This is not coincidence. This is covenant. Anointed one, I want you to hear me with clarity. What God is doing for you in this season is not a reward for perfection. It is a response to perseverance. It is heaven saying, I saw you, I heard you, I counted everything, and now heaven is settling the matter. So take a breath, release the posture of defense, step into the posture of divine acceptance. Say in your spirit, I endorse what heaven has written about me, because this is the moment where your story begins to turn. In part 4, we will step deeper into the prophetic mechanics of how heaven multiplies what was stolen and how the coming blessing will exceed every expectation you once had for your life. Chosen one, there is a truth you must hold on to in this moment. Heaven never returns what was stolen in the same measure it was taken. When God restores, He does not restore by addition. He restores by multiplication. And the settlement being prepared for you carries a weight far beyond anything you imagined, because it includes not only what you lost, but what you would have gained if the enemy had never interfered with your life. Anointed one, this is where the spiritual dimension of your settlement becomes extraordinary. Many people assume God is simply handing back the seed, the moment, the opportunity, the relationship, the peace that was taken from them. But the Spirit of the Lord operates differently. Heaven calculates in harvest, not seeds. Heaven calculates in futures, not moments. Heaven calculates in destiny, not disruptions. What was stolen from you 5 years ago was not a single opportunity. It was the chain reaction of blessings that would have unfolded from that opportunity. What slipped from your hands in 2020 was not just a job, a relationship, or a chance. It was the years of increase, favor, stability, and access that would have flowed through that door. And so when heaven issues a settlement check, it does not evaluate the moment alone. Heaven evaluates the trajectory that moment carried. Chosen one, this means that the blessing coming toward you is not simply compensation, it is acceleration. It is God placing you in the position you would have been in had the enemy never intercepted your